Welcome to The Open Line, a deeper dive into the stories and events of our community and the world at large. Interesting discussion and healthy debate on the topics that matter to you. Join the conversation. 519-376-7777. The Open Line on 89.3 CFOS FM.
Good morning. Welcome to The Open Line. I'm Claire McCormack, and today I have three guests in studio. We are talking about the Community Foundation's Grey Bruce Vital Signs Report, and I have Community Foundation Grey Bruce Executive Director Stuart Reid, Jill Umbach from the Bruce Grey Poverty Task Force, and Alanna Leffley, Vital Signs Chair and Community Foundation Board Member. You may also know her as an epidemiologist. She worked for Grey Bruce Public Health in the past and now works in London, I believe. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
Stuart, I'll start with you. Just for some listeners who may not know, what is Community Foundation? What does it do?
Well, it's a wonderful model of community philanthropy. We've existed since 1994, so we're 32 years old and going strong. We accept gifts in terms of donations from individuals and families and agencies, and we never spend the capital. We invest the gifts, we invest what we've been given, and with the earnings from our assets in the marketplace, we create grants, and so we support all kinds of a diversity of projects from charities and not-for-profits right across the region of Grey Bruce. We also have over $2 million of endowed funds that support scholarships, bursaries, and awards. So we support students across the region. We also have capital granting program too that we run as well. And Vital Signs is a big part of how we grant strategically. This is our fourth report. Over the last 10 years. We did a full report in 2016 and then one on youth in 2018, Vital Focus report on housing in 2022, and now this full report in 2026. So this is a kind of a community report card of how we're doing in Grey Bruce, and certain topics and areas emerge as a focus that perhaps we address when we grant, granting strategically to community need as defined by Vital Signs. And we also ask all of our applicants in both of our grant intakes in April and September to relate what they're doing to something from Vital Signs too. So we use it as a kind of a conversation starter. It's also a great thing to land on coffee tables across the region, kind of prompting families to think a little bit more about their community and what's happening and how they can get engaged.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, even in just what you said. This seems like I was talking to somebody about this show coming up, and they said it was a smart model just in terms of, when you're giving money to a charity, it gets spent. But in this way, it grows. And then it goes, to be spent on whatever project, program, those sorts of things. So it's a neat way to do it.
It grows. We started off the first year in 1995. We granted $2,500, and that came out of the pockets of a lot of board members that were sitting around the table back then. And last year in 2025, we went over $1 million just from our own coffers, and that's the kind of magnification of scale that we're talking about. We now manage over $25 million collectively, assets under management that are earning, that are the engine that provides the granting that we do in community. Yeah, and that's only going to increase in generations to come.
That it seems like a smart way to do it. Are there a lot of community foundations around? Does every community have them? How do they come to be?
Well, that's a good question. There are over 200 from coast to coast to coast in Canada, and it is a model that's spreading around the world. It's estimated that over 90% of Canadians are served by a community foundation. So the reach is really pervasive right across the country. We're seeing more and more pop up across the north and northern Quebec. So yes, it's a very it's a wide embrace of community right across the country.
In terms of who decides where the money goes, is that what the board does? They look at the applications, they look at how it relates to the Vital Signs report, and then you kind of look at who gets
Well, in terms of decision making, we really try and adhere to transparent and accountable kind of processes. And we assemble grant review teams that are representative of community. So we invite volunteers to come in that may have certain expertise in a certain area to help make those decisions. You're correct. They're always ratified by our board of directors, but we really bring in community knowledge to the table to make our decisions about, sometimes it is very competitive. We get a lot of applications and there's only so much money. So we have to make some tricky decisions. And we do that with volunteers.
And you mentioned capital granting. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference there?
Well, it's what we're supporting. Capital, of course, is a build or a equipment or a renovation or something that straddles more than one fiscal year in terms of a capital expense. And one of our endowment funds under management supports all of the capital funding. And this year, the program is open now. We took in letters of expressions of interest in June, and they apply in September, and money rolls out in November.
Okay. Is there like a tangible example of something that would be used?
Sure. That's pretty easy to do. I'm looking out the beautiful window here at the Roxy. We've supported the new floor in the theater. There's technological things that ticket buying systems. We support renovations to community hubs where maybe accessibility is a concern, maybe a curling arena, their chiller, they need equipment. So it's real hard items that is difficult for charities and not-for-profits to find those dollars. Really, the only other supplier of capital funding is Trillium Foundation, and sometimes scale, capacity. It's much easier to come to Community Foundation Grey Bruce to look for that. We grant up to $35,000 per project through the capital program.
Well, that could get a new floor in a place or two. Maybe
it's
I'm not
help.
well versed on the cost of flooring, but there you go. We should get into this vital signs report. As you said, it helps inform, what the decision making and sort of gives you a picture of the community. So you said the last full report was 2016. Then you had some focused ones on youth and then in housing in 2022. So, what was the major message that you got out of this one? Was there?
Well, I think there's some good news in this report. My colleagues are nodding. I'm going to invite them to chime in. But we really see post-pandemic some changes in our demographic makeup, infiltration of newcomers and diversity in a number of communities across the region. We are also reinforced in the Community Foundation's focus on affordable housing. That still seems to be a major issue that ripples across all of the indicators of well-being. We need to really find more solutions and collaborations and partnerships around providing more affordable housing for people. There were some encouraging things about people's, self-declared life satisfaction and mental wellness, and that we saw that in 2016 as well. It's kind of a mirroring of what we saw back then, that people, in terms of our comparison with rest of Ontario, there's a higher incidence of smoking and drinking, substance use, obesity in our community, but overall, people feel they feel a greater sense of life satisfaction than maybe other Ontarians, and that mental wellness thing. Males in Grey Bruce are at the top of the heap in terms of self-declared mental wellness. So there's some encouraging things in that respect. We also see, a proliferation of focus on the environment and the natural world, and we see that in the grant applications coming in over the last couple of years. It's really proliferated the amount of projects that are addressing things related to, clean water and conservation and other species that share our land in Grey Bruce. So that's something in the report that is somewhat encouraging, but also we see a lot of emergence of that priority of climate adaptation and the resilience of our area being a focus for both counties, whose reports we mention, and a lot of the community groups that address conservation issues in our region too. Maybe Alanna and Jill have a big takeaway too from the report.
I was surprised how similar it was to 2016, actually. Having looked at data in this area for a long time, I usually thought 10 years you would see there would be some changes. I mean, I think we still have an aging population here, and it's quite different compared to many parts of Ontario. And we do have some areas that have experienced a lot of growth, and that's no surprise to anybody who has been driving around or visiting any areas. And then there's other areas that really didn't have significant growth at all. So that was something I was a bit surprised about when that data was coming out. But yes, drinking is still a major issue, and other substances. And self-reported mental wellness was a bit of a surprise too. So I'd just like to see, going forward, looking at some other data to see if that is matching. Again, a lot of this data was collected at the early part of the pandemic, and I think it affected people differently. So I think in maybe another 10 years, maybe we'll see maybe if that sustains. But yeah, and the physical activity was a good news sort of thing too. So
when you talk about the self-reported mental health thing, is there any indication as to why men might have reported themselves as being happier than women?
I really can't explain it. I think that maybe there was different expectations of roles. Maybe women were not only working or trying to make those adjustments, but also trying to keep kids engaged because they weren't in their programs, they weren't in school. They were, there was a lot of that was put on probably more on females than males, and that's kind of just speculation on my part. But I think awareness for mental health issues has really changed over the last 10 years. I think we're talking about it more, and perhaps that also. So maybe being aware of your how you're seeing the world, maybe identified some things for some people, like maybe women and stress and things like that, and maybe for men, they didn't see those as their issues. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it says males ranked first at 76.2%, females ranked third at 52.1%. But I think we've mentioned this, but Grey Bruce was highest in Ontario for people reporting very good or excellent mental health from 2019 to 2021. When you're looking at granting, is there, would you be looking at, okay, why are men so happy? Are there programs for them that they're enjoying? Do those programs exist for women? Is that something you dig into kind of thing? Or, you kind of wonder, do you keep those men's programs going and see if you can create them for women or whatever it is? It's kind of hard to, I guess, pin that down.
Well, it's another thing you're prompting, Claire, is that how do we use the report to kind of dig in a little bit deeper? And that is something we do. There are things called vital conversations that we've staged over the years where we put together a town hall meeting and actually ask people how they're doing and get into some nitty-gritty about some of the things we've learned. And in most of our Vital Focus reports, that kind of anecdotal feedback is something we've really framed around data, and that's a very rich kind of storytelling aspect to learning beyond the numbers. And numbers, right at the front of our vital signs report too, we talk about how, numbers are often about the majority and summary, but it doesn't encompass the experience of everyone in our community. And in our report, we acknowledge the lacking data on Indigenous people, on reserve and off reserve. We don't have anything about other particular Mennonite communities. So we acknowledge that it's not an exact rubric. We need to get a little bit deeper and to really hear from everybody to have a full understanding of the vast types of experience people are having in Grey Bruce, and that's shifting all the time.
And what did Sorry, what did you call those meetings? Community conversations?
Vital conversations.
Vital conversations.
And there'll be some coming up. We've just birthed this report on June 17th, and it's landing. But post summer, I think we're going to be staging some opportunities for people to come together and talk about what we're sharing.
Well, we should take our first break. Hold on to that thought, Jill. We'll come back to you. And if any of our listeners would like to get a call in, maybe you have a question or something you'd like to share, the phone number is 519-376-7777, or you can call toll free at 1-800-265-3757. You're listening to the Open Line with the Community Foundation's Vital Signs Report for Grey Bruce on 89.3 CFOS FM.
Call and add your voice to the conversation. 519-376-7777. Now, back to the Open Line on 89.3 CFOS FM.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Open Line. I'm Claire McCormack, and I have Stuart Reid, Executive Director of Community Foundation's Grey Bruce, and we're talking about the Vital Signs Report that just came out in late June. There's also Jill Umbach, Bruce Grey Poverty Task Force Coordinator, and Alanna Leffley, Vital Signs Chair. Before the break, so we're talking about this Vital Signs Report. Before the break, Jill, I know you wanted to say something. We were talking about, self-reported mental health and people who do report, and how there are gaps in some of these statistics, just in terms of Indigenous communities, and Jill, you were saying, how do we support the people that we're not hearing from?
Well, there's supporting the people we're not hearing from. We do, the statistics show you that 70% are doing well, but then we look at what about the remaining 30%? And so I think this report also highlights that there are people that are not doing well. So we have the positive, and then we have, where are some of the barriers? Where is the rising housing costs, utility costs, low wages, precarious employment, inadequate social assistance rates, barriers to healthcare, disability supports, and our rural transportation challenges. So those come out in the report as well. So we have a large percentage doing well, but we also know we have to work with people and households. And I think people are starting to, they're feeling the cost of living right now. We are seeing significant increases to people at the food banks, the community meal programs that have never been there before. The United Way has had to, put a pause on their intake for a month just to catch up with new people coming and asking for assistance. So I think it's really critical that these statistics are in the living standard statistics are in the Vital Signs Report. Community Foundation is looking at how does it support all of the smaller organizations, your food banks, community meal programs, your churches, and things that are, holding our communities together, going through a difficult time when it comes to cost of living.
Just looking at cost of living, this report you can find around the community. You can find it online as well pretty easily, and I was reading it on my phone yesterday and then on my work computer as well. It's easy. It'll just pop right up. But even just the average home price. So this is from 2001 to 2021. So $140,000 to $608,000. That's a scary increase. I mean,
totally.
Looking at that, that's shocking. How can anybody own a house? It's just, and that's, so just looking at homelessness, 170 households in Grey Bruce were experiencing active homelessness in 2024. The rental vacancy, this is on page 17 of the report. It's got some very good statistics here. The benchmark is 3%. And Grey County has 1.7% rental vacancy, and Bruce County has 1.4%. So it's not easy to find a place to live.
Extremely difficult. We have 42% of people here in Owen Sound that rent. And it's incredible. We've got 4 to 5 year wait lists to get into subsidized social housing. So if you are on a low income, it's very difficult to find something to rent. If you are earning a good wage, you're still difficult to find something to rent and almost impossible to purchase.
I think the wage thing is really another big takeaway from this report. United Ways across the province do a living wage calculation. And in Grey Bruce, the living wage, it's an hourly rate for a full-time worker who needs to make ends meet where they live. And our rate is $24.60, which is second only to the GTA at $27.20. So people think, living in rural Ontario might be cheaper, but no, not at all. And what you're describing about the cost of shelter is one thing, Claire, but some of the other ones are quite startling, because the page after we give the average monthly expenses and transportation. In Grey Bruce, the average person would spend $484 a month versus $182 in the GTA. So I think that's the point of clarity there that emerges when you look into how that number comes about. Lack of regional transportation is a huge thing. And the housing figures into that, because people can't find housing next to where they work. Right. Or they need to go to healthcare, or they need to get their kids to an event or school. And so you have to have a car to live, and that's a very expensive proposition.
Most of the other calculations they put in a bus pass. So the City of Ottawa, even Toronto, is high cost of living, but it's bus pass that people get calculated with. So it's much cheaper, and that brings it down. The other piece of it is the childcare. Access to childcare right now. The National Child Care Program has been promising us $10 a day childcare. We're at about $22 a day if you can get it. And there's no criteria. Even if you have a lot of money, you still get the $22 a day versus a family that needs to go and get additional subsidies to be able to afford the childcare. So we have some real incredible programs right now, but they want to expand, and there's been some expansion, but we keep going back and forth with the provincial funding. Are we going forward, holding back, cutbacks? It's a bit of a up and down roller coaster for the childcare sector. It's critical for women to get back to work as well. That was something that impacted during the pandemic. A lot of women stayed home from work.
It was a big part of then Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's speech too, right? That was part of the whole push behind that, was to be able to get women back into the workforce, and what an asset they are to the economy, what a big piece of it. And if you can't go to work, then. Just talking about that, you mentioned provincial funding, and while we've been talking about this for a while, it kind of makes me think Community Foundation Grey Bruce is interesting in that way, because it's not necessarily driven by political goals, or sort of agendas or anything. It's sort of driven by, here's what somebody in the community wants. They apply for some funding for it. So it just comes straight from whatever organization.
It's neighbors helping neighbors, and people are always surprised at that, because people stop me and say, well, where does the money come from? I said, it's donated. It's people that are making a gift in their will. They're making a legacy plan to support the community that supported them all their lives. Maybe they make a monthly donation or memorial donation on someone's birthday. That's how we build. And it's people helping people. And it's local community wealth building that we're really engaged in here. These are assets that are going to help the local people in Grey Bruce in perpetuity, and that's a big part of our model. The other aspect of Vital Signs that I'd like to draw attention to, we also talk about our community grants in action. At the end of every indicator in the report, there's 3 or 4, maybe or more, projects that we've supported that are addressing the issues that we're talking about. So while the report itself might lay down some hard-hitting facts, there's also evidence in this report of community coming together about a caring place that we live in, where people are trying to do things to support those in need, and come up with creative and fantastic projects that really help enrich our lives in so many different aspects, whether it's culture or a food bank or a community garden or a gay pride parade or kids sports. It's the panorama of activity that is mostly supported by volunteers and donors that are giving back and supporting their neighbors. I mean, that's a really resilient and uplifting aspect of the report when you get into the pages that relate to the grants in action.
Yes, it does give you hope when reading about them. Even just talking about the transit. I mean, there is some provincial funding for that to try to fix that problem in the Grey and Bruce and the surrounding counties to try to come up with something. But when you look at the living wage, how do you get employers to pay that? Who advocates for that? If you look at the living wage is a calculation of what it should be, not what people are getting.
That's right.
It's what is ideal in order to live day to day comfortably in Grey Bruce? Is it, is the United Way the loudest voice on that, or how do you?
I think at the United Way and through our Poverty Task Force, our Income Security and Employment Action Group, we do a lot of advocacy around it. We do reach out. There are 10 registered employers. To be a living wage employer, you need to be certified to be on the map. But we know there's many other employers that do pay a living wage, but don't go through the certification. But there is a certification process if you want to be on the map, and also to be able to advertise that you're a living wage employer, and going to the Ontario Living Wage Network, which is, we do that, the calculation jointly with them. Our calculation is regional as well. It includes Huron, Perth, and Simcoe counties, so that employers who employ in multiple locations will pay a living wage across the area. And that's part of why the living wage calculation is being done as well. So one employer, I'll give an example, Meridian Bank. Shout out to Meridian Bank. They have multiple locations across Grey Bruce, but also across Ontario. They pay a living wage in all of their locations. And so that's where an employer that has multiple locations can also do that. And it's a good thing to be able to, acknowledge that you recognize that the cost of living is this. It does change. You have to agree to adjust. It's not that you paid a living wage in 2016. It's that you're paying a living wage in 2026 again. So every year, unfortunately, our living wage is increasing every year, which means those employers, the 10 that are registered for Grey Bruce, are increasing their wages for their staff. So it's not a static thing, which can be challenging for a small employer to every year do more than this, sometimes a significant increase. But it does allow employers to look at a way to retain staff and to recognize that, it's a lot higher than the minimum wage, and people can't get by on just the minimum wage right now.
Yeah, just looking at that $484 transportation average monthly expense in Grey Bruce that's a lot of money. That is huge. We should take a break. Again, if any of you listeners have a question for my guests here, we are talking about the Grey Bruce Vital Signs Report through Community Foundation. The phone number is 519-376-7777, or you can call toll free at 1-800-265-3757. You're listening to 89.3 CFOS FM.
You can find the podcast version of today's broadcast on our website later this morning at 893cfos.ca. In the meantime, back to the show.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Open Line. Today we are talking about the Community Foundation Grey Bruce's Vital Signs Report. Taking the pulse of our community is what it's doing, and it's full of statistics, all kinds of interesting measurements and stories about Community Foundation grants in action. Some great success stories here. We haven't talked yet too much about the environment, and there was a really cool story, I thought, about creating clean drinking water for cattle, keeping them away from streams, clean water in a connected countryside. So this is by the Bruce Peninsula Biosphere Association. So this is upgrading watering systems for 20 farm families around the Barrow Bay community. So it reduces cattle access to stream, lowers nutrient loading and turbidity, improves water quality in Little Lake. That's so cool.
It is cool. It's improving the quality of the water that's flowing into our wonderful Lake Huron too. So they're keeping the cattle out of the streams. That's the turbidity and the nutrient levels when there's runoff, agricultural runoff into the water. So a really progressive project. Community Foundation's been engaged in an initiative called Lake Huron Forever for coming up to 5 years now, where we've been actively proponents for nature-based solutions for stormwater management to clean up the water that's helping Lake Huron be a vital and clean freshwater source. So this project is really emblematic of some of those initiatives.
Yeah, and you can read all about that in the report, and then there's a link you can click on to get right into how they did it, all the mechanics of it and stuff. It's really cool. Alanna, just from a public health perspective, I mean, there are beaches that are closed after storms, because there's too much E. coli or bacteria in the water. Something like that might impact that in a positive way.
Absolutely, as well as people's health. Those having safe beaches is important, and when you have your little ones that are playing at the side of or in the water, and there's always going to be water getting into their mouths and ears and eyes and everything, that has health consequences. E. coli sometimes, little children with E. coli, it's not just from something as innocent as playing at the beach.
Yeah, and those little puddles that form right before you get in the water of all that runoff, and then they eat a sandwich without cleaning their hands or get an ear infection, and you're sitting in the ER waiting room. Speaking of ER waiting rooms, we should also talk about access to healthcare. But first, we should talk to Donald, who is on the line. Good morning, Donald.
Good morning. For Stuart and Alanna and Jill, my voice will sound very familiar because I actually sit on the Vital Signs Committee. But I wanted to draw just to listeners' attention that the Vital Signs Committee might sort of have an angle or appearance that it's only white Anglo-Saxon people that are sitting on the committee. There's a variety of people on the board of the foundation and on this committee. I myself have a disability and I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, so there is diverse input into the Vital Signs committee and how it formed the report. So I want to draw that to people's attention. The other comment I may have to make is that I'm the chairperson of the One World Festival, and we received funding from the foundation, and we appreciated that very much, and it helped make our event more successful. We were able to pull in funds from the foundation to pay for transportation to bring school children from remoter communities to Owen Sound to celebrate the diversity and multiculturalism of our communities in Grey and Bruce. So there's a thank you and an appreciation of how diverse the committee is.
Thanks for that, Donald. Thanks for calling in. We appreciate that.
And a big thank you back to Donald, too. His voice at the table is so much valued, and he always speaks up and brings new perspectives and challenges us to consider people with disabilities in our work, and that's been so valuable to us. We are so grateful for Donald's volunteerism.
That's no problem, Stuart. I'll send you the bill later. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's fun looking at this report because it has recognizable people in it. There are little quotes from people. Liz Buckton, Senior Policy Planner with Grey County. You've got, I'm thinking of Colleen Purdon. She's in here somewhere, and she's also part of the One World Festival. That's what sort of triggered this. But Jenny Hanley, who runs the Hanley Institute. There are little sort of places where they kind of give a little perspective and talk about the importance of this, this granting system and some of the work that they're doing and the changes that they're seeing. So that's pretty neat. Now, we haven't talked about access to health care, and I think there is a statistic, I've just got to figure it out here, it'd be under health and wellness, but in terms of access to doctors, 23,562 patients do not have access to primary care in Grey Bruce. That's more than the population of Owen Sound.
That's a lot, and I do understand that statistic is from a particular point in time, and that is being addressed, and a lot of people have migrated onto lists, and about 5,000 have actually
there's been a significant increase. The Grey Bruce Ontario Health Team has been working exceptionally hard with the family health teams and others to get people attached to either a family health team or a community health centre. There's still a lot more work to do, but they are 100% focused on that. And if you can't get onto it with a doctor, a nurse practitioner, to get into the team, to get services. It's still a growing concern how to physically get there. And once again, it comes back to transportation. And also, are our people on Ontario Disability Support Program, are they receiving sufficient income to be able to stay healthy? So there's still a lot of challenges in the system, but it is something where the Grey Bruce Ontario Health Team has made it their number one priority. And I know many communities also, I just heard Kincardin's got a new doctor. People are working hard to recruit doctors into our area, and that's part of the diversity as well that's happening. People coming from various communities coming here as newcomers, working as doctors, and us creating welcoming communities for them to stay. So that we just don't have them for a short time, but that they extend and they want to build and live here with their families.
Yeah, there is. And there was also in the news yesterday a new doctor in Northern Bruce Peninsula who will be working out of the Tobermory Clinic and the Lions Head Hospital and Golden Dawn Senior Citizens Home. So it's in, we were in a community where every time there's a new doctor, we celebrate that. We put it on the news because there is a need for doctors. Alanna.
There is complexity of the people's needs. And because we've got an older population, we've got more problems. And for a number of people who have been without primary care for a number of years, that means you've got a population base seeking medical assistance that have complex issues and problems as well. So it's yes, we're very grateful for who we do have, but our aging physicians are a problem in Canada, but in Ontario very much so. So you've got primary care physicians delaying retirement or trying to get some work-life balance, and it's still an ongoing issue. And I think because there's not walk-in clinics and other things like that, people assume when they come to an area that they would be able to not have to go to the emerge department if they've got something that needs attention outside of certain hours. And that isn't the case. And you have to go quite a distance in order to get that service if you're not right in Owen Sound or in a place that has an emerge department. So I think that access to primary care is a symptom of a larger problem that we can't ignore, and is going to affect our area very much more in the years to come, I think.
How would Community Foundation be able to help with that?
Well, we have a fund that we manage, an endowed fund, which is the Owen Sound Fund for Physician Recruitment that we've had for a number of years. So we are a flow-through for donations that can support building awareness and some of the programming around doctor recruitment. I would say that Vital Signs is a wonderful tool for doctor recruitment. We also know that when physicians come here, they are happy to stay. Like if we can get them here, we have a really high retention rate. And one of the things we haven't talked about is just the way that the report kind of alludes to the lifestyle we enjoy in Grey Bruce. The recreation and learning section, I think, is an amazing positive thing. You know, the cultural amenities, the festivals, the museums, the art galleries, the way that people come together to create music and art and celebrate, and our access to the outdoors, to the coastline and beaches and resorts and national parks. The Bruce Trail has 450 kilometers right in Bruce Grey, which is another great resource. I think that evocation of our healthy living, and that probably has a lot to do with our mental wellness too, is our connection with the earth and the land that we live on, and very positive ways to come together with neighbors to celebrate arts and culture. I think that's a huge aspect of Grey Bruce life, and a very positive takeaway from the Vital Signs report.
Yeah, and that is important when you're trying to recruit physicians. They want to know that there are programs for their kids, and that there are many of them are healthy individuals. Mm-hmm. Not all, but who might want to go kayaking or biking or hiking or whatever, and we offer all of that. I mean, it's hard to be sad on a beach, which we have plenty of. Blue Mountain Resort as well. There are a lot of things to offer in this area for sure. And you've got all kinds of cool things that the Community Foundation is doing. One of them in the report is the Girls at Bad. So that was launching a first ever dedicated 9U all-girls baseball team in Owen Sound, which is great because sometimes, even just before the show, we were talking about access, sort of gender equality and access to sports in terms of being able to book facilities. I know I've been told in Saugeen Shores that, some of the men's hockey kind of casual hockey groups or leagues have ice time that they've just had for decades, and girls team, I'm not making any commentary here, but the girls teams, they want more ice pads to get, for example, more girls teams in, more ice time in. And I don't know what the case is with baseball in Owen Sound, but it's neat to see, something that's directed towards girls to get them into baseball, and on purpose, because I think a lot of kids, there is a growing, Saugeen Shores just built this massive baseball park because there's a growing demand for that kind of stuff in the area. So this Community Foundation Girls at Bat project is one of those examples of.
There's all kinds of recreation and sports funding. It's a really attractive thing for a lot of people when they're setting up donor-advised funds. So a donor-advised fund, the donor has an advisement opportunity each year to kind of direct where their dollars go. And some people have set them up and really are very interested in supporting these innovative recreational aspects. I think that's pretty cool. And the report hints at that too.
And you mentioned even things like money for an ice or chiller at a curling club kind of thing. And I know that they've had, I think it was the Allenford Curling Club. I don't quote me. Well, I guess I am saying this on the radio, but they had a fruitcake fundraiser where somebody was baking a whole bunch of fruitcakes to raise money for, things for the curling club. It's a great way even for, people who are older as well to get out and socialize, and be in the community. Those things, have a lot of benefits. Oh,
huge benefits. And, belonging as a term, I know that's kind of a buzzword that might be overused, but again, that is very important to this report too, because we talk about belonging in terms of community. And there are some troubling things too. There's interest in politics is waning. We have some statistics on voter turnout in municipal elections, which is surprisingly low. And, there's also, people who are the numbers on diversity and the different languages that are infiltrating with migration into our area too. Things are shifting. And what you're describing are the opportunities to bring neighbors together and to integrate people into a supportive community. So we know each other, we know who's down the road, and we see the face of our community changing. And that all happens at the curling rinks and the Women's Institute and the ball diamonds. Those are really important infrastructure for the belonging structure that we want to see in a healthy Grey Bruce.
Yeah, things like the Hanley Institute as well for youth,
yeah.
Joan Johns Junction over in Southgate. All of these great organizations for youth too, right? Because that can be a real struggle when you're a teenager and you feel like you don't fit in, and those organizations are there and they're just created by people in the community. Somebody had an idea, wanted to do this thing, and made it happen. And both of those women, Joan John and Jenny Hanley, are in this report too with their comments. We should take our last break. When we come back, we have Roberta waiting on the line. If you would like to get a call in, the number is 519-376-7777, or you can call toll free at 1-800-265-3757. You're listening to The Open Line on 89.3 CFOS FM.
Call and add your voice to the conversation.
519-376-7777.
Now, back to the Open Line on 89.3 CFOS FM.
Welcome back to the Open Line. We've got just a few more minutes here with Stuart, Reid, Jill Umbach, and Alanna Leffley. And I've got Roberta waiting on the line. Good morning, Roberta.
Good morning. You've hit kind of a sore spot. The reason being, my sister lives in Cambridge. And I don't know how many times I've talked to her, and she said, well, there's a doctor just around the corner that's advertising taking patients. There's a doctor just opening up an office. And my brother in Oakville, he can go get a complete physical every year and not think twice about it. I don't know anybody up here who's ever had a physical in the last, I don't know how many years. But I was thinking, in the schools, they have these kids who are learning how to make movies. And we even have a show once a year with movies that they've made over in the galaxy. I was thinking, is it not possible to have those kids make a movie about what's going on in Grey Bruce? All the things that you've just mentioned in the movie, but I don't know if they probably can't make it in a CD anymore because we don't have the technology. technology that I understand, but is there not something along that line that they can make and send out to the graduating medical students?
That's a brilliant idea, Roberta. I think I'm hoping some charities and not-for-profits are listening to take up the mantle. But it's I think that kind of intergenerational engagement in a situation is really smart, and I do think. In our experience at Community Foundation, moving pictures are a great way to tell a story, and people are very engaged with video. So I think you've got a great idea there that we're broadcasting with this show. I think that kind of initiative is great. It's getting the word out about. I think you're agreeing with me about the lifestyle in Grey Bruce can be very attractive to physicians. And thank you for sharing about your perspective on access to healthcare. And I think a lot of people share that concern and that experience.
Well, if you can get a hold of them, my sister moved to Cambridge. It was a lovely little town. Now she has constant reports of shootings just around the corner and robberies and all drug deals and all sorts of wonderful things. So maybe we could include voting and lack of violence. You have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Roberta. Roberta mentioned students, and that's one of the things I know we wanted to talk about was the increasing school enrollment, these school-aged children. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, I feel like we were talking about, well, not us here in this group, but just in the news, accommodation review committees closing down schools because the population didn't seem to be going up. And now it seems to be. I'm just going to try to find the statistic.
We're building more schools, and the student enrollment is up 3,469 JK to 12 students in the last 10 years. So that's a real shot in the arm. That's exciting.
It is, and there's the new Owen Sound Catholic School, high school being built, Port Elgin School, Beavercrest, is it called? In Grey Highlands? I'm going to have to find it here. But there are, a few school builds, renovations, all kinds of things like that. So that is nice to see.
We also support students through their education pathway with scholarships, bursaries, and awards. And just following up on what Roberta was describing, we have quite a number that support young people moving into community health care and even medical studies, some substantial ones that have been established that can really help students that are interested in health care and maybe medicine, help them through their schooling. And, those are the people that might, end up working back home and investing in the place where they grew up. So that's another aspect of how we're addressing the primary health care gap.
All of this kind of leads to, it paints a picture of what's going on in the community, helps you identify maybe where there are gaps, weak spots, things you want to support, where there are needs for things. We've talked about how Community Foundation grows this money and then disperses it. So from the perspective of if I was an organization and I wanted to apply for funding, how would I do that?
I encourage everybody to visit our website. There's a tab across the top for grant seekers. Click on that and you can enter into our portal and begin an application for the September deadline. We have community grants upcoming, $5,000 available for projects. And the capital funding that's closed for 2026, but you can look at the criterion and the eligibility. Maybe your project, you should start working towards the application next year. We always are available by phone if you've got an idea or a project you're looking for support or how you're going to apply. We want to help you out to be successful, so please call our office at 519-371-7203. I should have mentioned the URL for our website is communityfoundationgraybruce.com, and you can access all those other vital signs reports that I've talked about, as well as information on granting opportunities. And there's also a little bit about volunteerism too. If you're interested, like Donald, getting engaged and involved in our work too, we want to hear from you as well.
And also, if you would like to donate.
Please, that's the main thing.
That's what drives the whole thing.
And we encourage everybody to think about that. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing and brings peace of mind. Putting together when your will, considering a gift. We have a lot of tools on the website too about how to insert a gift in your will, how to talk to your family members about coming to some consensus and landing on a topic or a function for your fund, or the need that we have for non-restricted funds. We're happy when people just give us money and entrust trust that Community Foundation Grey Bruce is going to address community needs as they arise through our vital signs knowledge. And we need more of those non-restricted funds so that we're able to kind of divert money to things that are topics of concern.
So that phone number again, 519-371-7203. We are basically out of time, but in 10 seconds, where can you find this report? You can find it online, Community Foundation Grey Bruce, and you were physically?
Physically, we're getting them out. They'll be in hopefully libraries and public spaces. We're working on that right now.
And the Harmony Center.
Yeah.
You can get them at the Harmony Center now, too. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's all the time we have for today. You can find this on our podcast later today on our Bayshore Broadcasting News website. Thank you very much. You're listening to 89.3 CFOS FM.